A lot of people, they come to us and they say, yeah, I know I need a financial plan, but what does a financial plan even mean? Is there something that you give me? Is there some final output? And the answer is yes. But instead of just telling you that we have that, I want to show you actually what exactly that output looks like. So what I'm looking at here, I actually have a sample client pulled up. Now, Frank and Joanna, fake people, not real people, but very similar to a lot of the types of clients that we work with, where what you can see, Frank's 56, Joanna's also 56, and they want to retire in about 8 or 9 years. And they're asking themselves, are they on track? Can they do this? So what we did is by the time that we got to this page that we're looking at here, we went through a series of projections of saying, what income will you have in retirement between Social Security and pensions? What assets do you have today? 401ks, IRAs, regular investment accounts. And what's it going to cost to do everything that you want to do in retirement? And after a conversation to kind of get some of those details and work some of this out, this is what we saw their portfolio trajectory would look like. Over the next several years, they would continue to save to their portfolio, they would retire, and then unfortunately in this initial scenario, what we saw is they didn't quite have enough to last for the rest of their life. Now, that's why they came to us. They want to know, what do we need to do to get on track? So we started to solve this for them. The first thing we looked at is we said, Frank, Joanna, what if you work one additional year? What impact will that have upon your financial plan? So we looked at that. We said 1 extra year of work, when we look at their portfolio trajectory here, it actually gains them 3 extra years of funding. Now you can see here, they wanted to see, how do we make sure our investments last until age 100? Everyone's going to be a little bit different, but they're healthy, a lot of energy, great life expectancy in their family. So they wanted their assets to last until 100. And in this case, it didn't quite last that long, but 1 extra year of work did have a pretty significant impact. So we showed them, okay, if 1 year of work doesn't quite cut it, what if you do 2 more years of work? How much of an impact would that have as you look at your retirement? And still not quite there, but if you look at 3 more years, we were able to come back to Frank and Joanna and say, if you were both to work 3 more years above and beyond what you initially thought you might want to do, now you're back on track. Now you have enough investments, enough income to fully support that retirement and not have to worry about running out of money over that time frame. So that was one option, but it's not the only option. The next thing we looked at them is we told them that we could look at expenses. They told us from the beginning they'd love to have $10,000 per month after taxes adjusted for inflation, but they felt like that was kind of high. I said, you know what, let's just see what that looks like. But in reality, that's probably actually more than we need to really live on. So we started showing different amounts. We said, what if you reduce living expenses to $110,000 per year? How would that change things? Well, only a $10,000 per year difference, but you can see it made over $1 million of difference in terms of net benefit gained over the course of their lifetime. Once we bumped that down to what they actually felt was more realistic, $100,000 after taxes, their mortgage is paid off by that time, they're already on track for that. They don't have to work longer. They don't have to make any changes. What we saw is they were already on track for that. So that was another option. We could say, given the choice of spending more, but working longer, or spending $100,000, which is right about what they're spending today, and being able to retire in 8 or 9 years, we're able to have a great discussion to see what's more of a priority to you and what resonates more with what you want to do. So that was an option. We looked at other things. We looked at annual savings of how would this change if you were to save more to 401ks, Roth IRAs. We looked at different options. We also like to stress test this of saying, you know what, some of these things we can control. We can control to an extent how long we work. We can control to an extent how much we save and how much we spend and some of those choices we make along the way. Things we can't control are things like Social Security. What if there was a reduction to that? We can't necessarily control the stock market as much as we wish we could. What happens if there's a bear market? What happens if inflation's higher? All these are types of things that we can really plan for and test in advance, because by doing this, it gives shape to what we should be focusing on today. By looking at the next 20, 30 plus years, sometimes it gives shape to what we should be doing today over the next 1, 2, 3 weeks, even in many cases. So that was one thing we looked at. Now with Frank and Joanna, we told them you could work longer or you could cut expenses in order to make your plan work. But we noticed some inefficiencies in their portfolio. And we said, look, if you rebalance your portfolio to make some changes that we suggested without working longer, without cutting expenses, that alone would do a significant amount of good for you as we're looking at what your portfolio might be able to expect to do over that time. So if you look at this portfolio, that rebalance for them got them on track. And we said, if you combine that with living on $100,000 per year, which is what they actually thought was more realistic, Well, now as you're looking at their plan, what we can start to see is we can start to see how this gives shape to a totally different projection. And when we look at this projection, I had the conversation with them. I said, Frank, Joanna, if your desire is to live until 100 and have $4.3 million to pass on to children, to church, to charity, whatever is most important to you, wonderful. You're in a position to do that. But if instead of doing that, you would like to retire earlier or be able to spend more in retirement or be able to do different things along the way, that opened up some really neat conversations when they started thinking about what they could do for grandchildren and maybe funding college, or maybe what they could start do in terms of stepping away from work earlier to be able to pursue volunteer things that were important to them, or be able to pursue just whatever they felt like pursuing at the time. So the goal of this is to see well in advance, what are you on track for, and how can we come back to you with guidance to see what might be most effective as you look at your financial strategy. So these details, these are specific to Frank and Joanna. With every client, it's different. We start with a conversation that's about your goals, your desires, your hopes, your dreams, your financial resources. Let's customize this to you, because when you see this, it gives shape to how you should be living your life and what you're able to pursue because of what you've put yourself to do in a position financially. So that's a little bit of our planning process in a nutshell. There's a whole lot more that goes into this, but just wanted to give you a sense from a high level what some of this looks like when we're talking about doing financial planning.